Out of the 50 US states, 10 of them absolutely suck. Depending on where you live, you can either enjoy a great quality of life in a beautiful area, or you can barely make ends meet with all your teeth missing and a teenage daughter who got pregnant because of some high school dropout whose name is Dylan.
No! God, please, no! No!
Some of the factors that we're going to take into consideration here are crime, poverty, the economy, and a couple other factors. Alabama. Just like many other states on this list, there are many reasons why it's ranked so low, but one particular reason worth mentioning is that it is ranked dead last in the best states to have a baby. From parental leave to the amount of midwives, Alabama failed every single category, and seriously, babies are the future and all that, so I feel like it's a pretty important study to mention. I guess you could say Alabama isn't very baby friendly. Just say that next time that you don't want to hold someone's baby. I don't rank it high in baby friendliness. But I mean, seriously, with our high level of drunk driving deaths and all their tornadoes coupled with poor public education, why would you and your uncle want to have a kid in Alabama anyway? Also worth noting is that it's ranked amongst the lowest states when it comes to mental health care, which is pretty bad considering that in the US as a whole, more than half of the people who need mental health treatment don't get it. Arkansas. Back in the 1970s, they had decided to call themselves the natural state so as to attract various tourists, as if nature was not a thing in other states. They also have so little to promote that their one cool thing is supposed to be nature, and yet people don't seem to be taking much advantage of it, as Arkansas has one of the lowest rates of physical activity in the country. Arkansas really isn't famous for a whole lot, other than being the state that the Clintons are from and where Sam Walton, the guy who invented Walmart, comes from. Which, if we're being honest, the fact that just saying the name of the home of the store that's practically the staple for buying unhealthy food pretty much explains the whole lack of physical activity thing, so there you go. Arkansas also has the lowest number of dentists per capita, which I guess can be a good thing, depending on your opinion of dentists, that is. But for a country riddled with Mountain Dew-induced cavities, it's probably not a good thing. Also, if the primary university that most of your people root for has a chant of "Woo Pig Soo-wee" followed by pig snorting noises, well, pretty sure that dumps any lack of credibility that your state had left. Kentucky. More than a quarter of adults in Kentucky smoke tobacco, compared to the national average of 14%. That is the highest smoking rate in the country. Consider this. You're not going to be surprised to hear that Kentucky is the state with the highest cancer rate, and is also one of the worst states to retire in due to the poor quality of life. On top of that, it even got ranked as the worst state for animal safety for 13 years in a row, up until 2020. What the hell are people in Kentucky doing to their animals? I honestly don't even want to know, but I'm definitely not traveling there with my dog, let alone I'm probably not going to travel there at all. On the plus side, there is bourbon, bluegrass, and a low crime rate, but at this point, I think a bit more crime would do well to make things a bit more exciting. New Mexico. Okay, at least New Mexico has very low pollution, and that's really good. Some of these states do have pros, so it's not all bad, but this video is meant to show you how awful these states are, so I'm not going to compliment New Mexico on its low pollution levels. I want to be as mean and as critical as possible, so that's what I'm doing. You honestly don't have to look far to see just how bad New Mexico really is. It's ranked the lowest in terms of education because of its low high school graduation rate, and it was even ranked the worst state for single people, so you can't even have sex to forget about how bad it is to live there. Not to mention that New Mexico is practically a vast wasteland of mountain and deserts, with only a few very, very sparsely populated towns in between that are nothing more than Wild West tourist traps that offer shiny rocks and fake tomahawks. So, unless you're looking to relive the good old glory days of John Wayne and the pioneers, I would highly suggest that you turn around now, or maybe just never think about visiting in the first place. Mississippi. Thank God for Mississippi. Seriously, this is actually something you'll hear from other states that rank very low because they are grateful that they're not as bad as Mississippi. The phrase is so well known because everybody knows how much Mississippi sucks. I could list all the reasons, such as life expectancy and general boredom, but hey, I don't want to bore you. I could mention that it's the state with the lowest median household income at $43,000, while the number one state, Maryland, is at $86,000. But that is is not enough to capture the despairing spirit of Mississippi. It does actually have pretty high quality of life, partially because of the air and water quality, but I'm really not sure that's enough to keep it from being on this list. Sorry, Mississippi. South Carolina. One of the reasons why that it's among one of the worst states in the US is because it's not really the best state to raise a family. For example, it actually ranked 45th in daycare services. Man, the state must really suck with babies. South Carolina also ranks super low when it comes to credit scores, so apparently they suck with babies and their money too. It even has some of the most dangerous roads in the country, which might make you think, well, then they shouldn't drive and take up biking or something, but come on, it's America. It's also one of the worst states for college graduates because of their incredibly high unemployment rate. There's probably going to be a guy in the comments saying, well, you don't actually need to go to college to get a job. But look, when you're from South Carolina, you better do everything in your power to just leave that state. Louisiana. Louisiana might be famous for cool things like Mardi Gras and the Cajun food, but it's actually not that fun over there. Only 29% of the population has anything over college education, and look, we're not judging here, but come on. Can you imagine how that must have an impact on their community? It's one of the poorest states, and if you ever do visit, you won't be surprised. But people really don't think about how much Louisiana can suck because their experience in that state can be summed up to getting drunk while bar hopping in New Orleans during the middle of Mardi Gras. If you're still not convinced that Louisiana is one of the worst states, how about the fact that it leads the nation in syphilis? Don't ask me how I found that out. West Virginia. We can talk about education, income, and numerous other types of measurements all we want, but at the end of the day, what really matters here is that you could say it's happiness. And sure, it's often closely linked to general quality of life, so that's not surprising. West Virginia consistently ranks as one of the most miserable states in the US, though, with a depression rate of over 25%. I'm sure there's lots of reasons why, and yeah, one of them is probably the fact that they are the state with the least amount of teeth, so there's that. Oklahoma. Let's get dark here and mention that Oklahoma not only has some of the highest rates of premature death in the country, but also some of the worst numbers when it comes to infant mortality. It really doesn't help that Oklahoma ranks last in fruit consumption, and all that stuff's particularly problematic due to the fact that the state is in the bottom 5 of health insurance. In case you didn't know, not eating fruit is usually linked to terrible health. But do we really need to tell you how lame Oklahoma is? We'll learn about this when Chandler Bing had to move to Tulsa, Alaska. Look, I get it. It's dark in the winter, cold all year long, but it's not just that. One of the major problems that Alaska has is the unusually high cost of living, with islands and isolated communities having it the worst. It makes sense as it's so far from the rest of the country, and it's also one of the most dangerous states in the country, or even the most dangerous one, depending on the ranking. It's got the highest rape, and there's at least 75 Native American villages that don't even have any law enforcement. Plus, let's just try to ignore the fact that there are plenty of people that are either getting lost in the Yukon forest or getting gored alive by various wild animals such as moose and bear. Unfortunately, Alaska isn't exactly what you would paint as a Disneyland dream animal vacation. So there you have it. Those are the 10 horrible states that have probably got you depressed, but click this video right here to see the top 10 best states in America to maybe help cheer you up.